Can you start with your name, when you first came to Pingree, and your current positions?
Named Tom Keating. Came to Pingree in the fall of 1988, making this my 30th year. And currently I'm in the English department, teaching juniors and seniors. I'm teaching an interdisciplinary course called Freedom, and I'm the middle school basketball B team assistant coach, which I think is the lowest echelon in the coaching structure at school. I also advise Calliope, the Lit Mag, and I run an AP review course in the spring, mostly for juniors.
Can you tell me what it's been like watching Pingree change over the years, and maybe outline some of the different changes you've seen?
Wow, that's a big question.
It is.
Well, let's see. Many changes in the school. Again, I came in '88.
Right.
We were of course, we were out at this campus. We called it the Martinsville campus. Now it's Basking Ridge. The whole entranceway to the school was a different configuration. It had a circular driveway. Parents would drop students off in front of the clock tower. Obviously, the additions to the physical plant have been significant and have changed the school a great deal. I watched the art wing go up. I watched the middle school go up. I've watched the BAC go up. I'm waiting for the heliport and the and the condominium development and the mini mall and the Starbucks franchise.
All those timeshares.
Just kidding. Yeah, well, no, I've long advocated for a Starbucks franchise in-house. We'd have, a fresh brewed cappuccino, and Starbucks and Pingree would make millions. I've seen, there's just so many changes. I remember back in sort of the mid-'90s, I saw the first kid here, student, Marshall Heyman, who showed up to school with one of those big, clunky portable phones. Not a cell phone, but a sort of jacketed in a hip holster with an antenna, weighed about 4 pounds. He brought that in because he was waiting to hear early decision for college admission, and a parent was going to open the letter at home at noon and then call him if it was good news. And that, at the time it was sort of funny, it was a novelty, but when I think about it, that was really the dawn. That was the kind of, I don't know, the forerunner, the harbinger, of the cellular technology, in the phone, the universal appearance of the cell phone and a laptop. But again, it's a narrower way of saying that the changes in technology in the 30 years I've been here have been nothing short of staggering. And I you think 30 years, that's not that long a time. But when I came here in '88, kids were handwriting papers, and now they're, submitting them on Google Docs, and I'm now Skyping with students I work with in China, and I can Facebook message alums all over the planet instantaneously. And when you think about, again, only 30 years ago, none of this was available. It just shows not just how much Pingree has changed, but how much our society has changed. I have mixed feelings about that. I'm on record elsewhere as saying I'd rather see a student with a book in his hand than a cell phone. And I think the technology, it's enabling us to do things we never could have imagined. I've got a daughter in the second grade here, and she's doing a technology project with her classmates, and they are collaborating with a sort of partner school in Pakistan.
Oh, wow.
again, if you had told me that, well, if you had told me in '88 it would be married with children, I would have found that rather astonishing too. But I mean, if you told me in '88 that Pingree students would be communicating, in real time, simultaneously with students in a village in Pakistan, working on, a bridge project together, an engineering project, I would have laughed that off. That just would have been inconceivable. Now it's routine. So that's a huge, huge change in the school. Again, I do think it makes things in some ways, the interaction of people in our community, of teachers and students, administrators and staff and so on, a little less personal. I mean, I see a lot of people on their phones, and if they're on their phones, they're not talking to someone else.
Right.
We're not obliged to be talking to other people the whole time, but at the same time, it's putting a kind of it's putting something in between people. When I conduct my classes, I've got 14 kids in the room and all their laptops are flipped open. I feel good about that because the instant access, if I make a remark about Mark Twain and, I'm fishing for a fact and I can't find it or recall it, some kid has it 2 seconds later. I mean, that kind of capability, to enhance in-class and out-of-class interaction and work here is revolutionary. But at the same time, 14 laptops open, and in some way and I don't want to sound paranoid, but in some way I'm competing with those laptops for students' attention. And I'm not, given the configuration of the room, I'm not entirely convinced that they're all tuned into the same station, you know what I mean? So that's a huge change. The school, and everyone remarks about this, the school has become much more corporate in its feel, in its atmosphere, in its culture. And this has many different manifestations. Again, progress, undeniably, we're heading in the right direction. But there are ways in which it feels less like the country day school it was when I came here in '88, and more like, a faster paced, bigger, bolder, brasher school. Which again, I'm thrilled about that, but something's lost along the way. It's interesting. When I came here in '88, the development office, such as it was, consisted of one man who sat, behind a desk and made phone calls and connections and, arranged meetings and so on. And if you look at like the development and communications offices today, they're huge. They are. They're almost entities unto themselves. And again, like I greatly appreciate the work they do. But there are people in that office that I barely know.
Right.
And again, this was a community in '88 where you just knew everyone, and now there are more people to know, and I think the pace is faster, we're busier, and again, it doesn't quite have the feel it used to. But you don't gain anything without losing something else.
Right.
And I don't want to suggest that I'm not happy with how the school's evolving. It's great. I love it here as a teacher, and I have my one daughter goes here. My second daughter's coming in the fall. I'm thrilled about that. And I've made this working at Pingree has made up the bulk of my professional career, and I feel great about that. So,
can you maybe talk about some of the changes that you've seen in maybe the student culture? And I'm sure the manifestations of a bigger corporate Pingree might kind of trickle down its way to us.
Yeah, yeah, that's related. Well, I have to say that the essential quality about this school that I really love is the way I'm able to interact with students informally. That has not changed, and thankfully, and that's what makes this job so much fun. I mean, there's a serious side to what we do, and
Right.
preparing you for college and life beyond, and your careers and your futures, basically. But at the same time, you don't want that to bog down into this,
Right.
this kind of joyless, slog through the acquisition of knowledge and the furtherance of skill sets. I mean, that to me sounds. I mean, I know that's part of what we do. But if that were all we did, that would be,
Yeah.
I don't know how much fun that would entail. But again, at Pingree, I've found that I can really get along with the students, outside of class, in other venues around the school. I can work with students I don't work with in class, get to know them personally, socially. And that's, for me, that's been a great satisfaction for being here. One of the major satisfactions that I take in having been here this long. That has not changed. That's the same. Some of the other cultural changes, I think, again, related to the burgeoning of technology. I think technology has changed the culture of the school, and in good ways and bad. Again, I mentioned that before. There's a part of me that wouldn't mind every student, putting the phone away or the laptop away, coming into the school, or just to use it when you have to in class, because again, I'm old-fashioned, but it's something about the omnipresence of technology to me is at the expense of the more personal contact. So I see a lot of kids on cell phones. I see a lot of kids sitting solitary, with a cell phone or a laptop, and not forcing someone to get involved with other people, but I think without the phone or the laptop, I think more kids would revert to that sort of old-fashioned contact and interaction. I think and I say this gingerly, but I think one of the changes in the school's culture that I bemoan is that I think the humanities, and I don't just think this is at Pingree, but I think throughout our society, I think the humanities are in retreat, and I think English, my discipline, has shrunk in importance and relevance. And over the 30-year span I've been here, I'm on record for this. And this too may be a function of me getting older, but I don't sense as much of a genuine enthusiasm and passion for literature and the arts that I felt before. And I think part of that is, get the pun, part of that stems from the popularity of the STEM courses, of science, of engineering, students who pursue possible careers in engineering, computer programming, finance, neuroscience, medicine, more broadly. And I think, again, I'm no expert, I have no data, but I think that, again, the proliferation the rising popularity of those disciplines and the careers they lead to, I think has made the arts, and more specifically English, marginalized. I think people take English because they have to. I don't get the feeling as much anymore that people love the books they're reading. Yeah, some books are very popular, and I think my classes remain very dynamic. But again, I would ask you. I mean, how many students do you see in the course of a day curled up in a chair reading Jane Austen?
Right.
Maybe they have a Jane Austen assignment to read. But I mean, when I was, go back before I came here. I mean, when I was a kid, I mean, I loved to read, and I spent most summers just curled up with books. I read hundreds and hundreds of books. There was no internet. There were many fewer channels on the television. There were no iPods. We had a Sony Walkman, I guess, but I mean, again, fewer distractions, fewer alternatives, fewer possibilities, and I think again it's complicated, but here, I think with so many students, who are pursuing the kind of foundation they need to go into the STEM fields, that you're seeing, a kind of an inevitable decline in the arts. I find that unfortunate.
Let's maybe shift gears a little bit. How have you seen the honor code change at Pingree?
It's another big question. I'll be honest with you. I have a very hard time getting a fix on the honor code here, because I have no data. And I mean, I hear the occasional honor board violation, honor code violation, or honor board case, which we hear about only briefly and in passing. But and you talk to people, you hear different opinions about how pervasive cheating is at the school. Some people claim it's everywhere. Some people do not say that. To the extent I can tell, it's not happening in my classes. I don't fear that it does. I don't look through a set of papers thinking, doubtful that all of them are done in complete honesty. My own opinion, again, just based on my own sort of gut feel and the way I sort of keep, just from where I'm sitting, is that the vast majority of students here respect the honor code and abide by it. Are there violators? I'm sure. This probably goes back to the beginning of recorded history and will probably continue forever. When you have a system that basically gives students the freedom and latitude to function, without a hall pass or without other kinds of supervisory measures. Right. I think some people will take advantage of it. I'm also someone who believes that you don't abandon, the faith you put in students to conduct themselves honorably. You don't abandon that simply because some people are taking advantage of it. I think that's you're losing something greater than the problem you may be solving, by discouraging those few kids who are not honest. The other thing I think, my thought about the honor code, and I've thought about this a great deal. I mean, I'm 61, but I was 17, and I'm not admitting to anything tortious or criminal. But I think it's interesting. We're working with students as young as 5 and as old as 18, but all obviously very young people, pre-adulthood. And I think a lot of people, many people, make mistakes when they're young, exercise poor judgment, act before they think, and I think that again, a system that encourages young people to assume the responsibility of honorable behavior is a damn good thing. Do you know?
Yeah.
I mean, we Pingree, the faculty, the school, we're working with students on their way to adulthood, and they're not going to get it right every time. Neither are we. But it's like to put in place not a system, but like a spirit, a philosophy that says this is what we want you to live up to.
Right.
This is what we aspire to, and then let students undertake that challenge. That is, I mean, I just believe in that to the core. And when, of course, it's very deflating and frustrating and demoralizing when, you know, someone violates the honor code. It's terrible when someone violates the code and gets away with it, and then students who act honorably see that someone can do that, you know, and get away scot-free. That's a terrible thing. Even kids who are brazen about their behavior, you know, because they don't get caught. I think about that, and that doesn't keep me up at night, but that's obviously, that's a very frustrating thing. But having said that, the idea that the majority, and I think the vast majority of students here are really tackling the challenge of trying to behave honorably, that's much more inspiring than the frustration I feel for those kids who
Right.
who are failing. And my hope is, you know, again, as Scott Fitzgerald said, reserving judgment. It's a matter of infinite hope. I would think that, I mean, all teachers would look at even the most egregious violators and say, this is a work in progress, and perhaps at this point, or if not at this point, at some point, the student is going to figure out, you know, the right path and take it. You know, even the kids
Right.
who violate the honor code, you think, like, again, they're works in progress, and maybe this is what they need to go through on their way to finding a way to live honorably.
How do you see the discussion of the honor code going around Pingree? Do you feel like there's not enough, there's too much? Do you want to see it go in a different direction or be driven by a core group?
I don't think there's too much. I think this is something, the notion of honor and the part we play in maintaining it, I don't think that can be overdone. I mean, I think if we, the danger here is that if our raising it in public forum is sort of routine and repetitive, then it will become very stale, and you know, then your intentions, you know, are dashed by, you know, kids rolling their eyes and say, oh no, not this again, you know, not another honor board presentation. But I haven't heard that. I mean, I used to hear that. I haven't heard that much lately. You know, students complaining
Right.
that the honor board is over publicized or emphasized. I think we should find as many ways to bring it up as possible. And that can be, again, the John Hanley lecture series. Doesn't have to be, explicitly about the honor code here, but it should obviously involve some aspect of ethics, which by extension would be related to our honor code. I think periodic presentations. I know, any kind of guest speaker. I forget her name now. We had a speaker come in, Westerman, and she came back and she gave a talk about being, she's an attorney. And it's great. That was fantastic because, she was able to talk to our students about how the things she had learned and experienced here at Pingree played out
Right.
when she was in college and then law school and then practicing law. And something like that is invaluable because there's someone who can come in who's articulate who can come in and say that, what you do and don't do, here on the field, in the classroom, in the cafeteria, like this behavior does impact your life, later,
Right.
professionally. I thought that, and that's just one example, I think, of a terrific way to bring the honor code to life. But again, there are many ways to do that. You could, periodic forums. I love the ceremony at the outset of the year of the convocation. Again, it's a ritual, but it's an important ritual, and it's a visible, broad-based, inclusive kind of ceremony that just reminds us in a very formal way, that we live by this code, and this code, it's all of us, and it matters.
Right.
So, any way we can keep it in the forefront and celebrate it, examine it, criticize it, update it, whatever, I think is very valuable. I don't think there's such a thing as overemphasis. I think there is imperfect and
Right.
repetitive emphasis, which again, that would undermine what you're trying to achieve. But no, I think the honor code should be front and center. And of course, I teach ethical dilemma, so
Right.
that, many of the discussions that I have in my classes and the other teachers who teach ethical dilemma, the same thing comes up in the freedom class as well. It's like, what is the honorable behavior, the right thing to do? The freedom class features a multitude of stories where characters find themselves, confronting some kind of ethical dilemma. A soldier has to carry out an order he doesn't believe in. A member of a group is sort of pulled involuntarily into an act of bullying. What do I do? Do I stand up and object? Do I just kind of let it go? To retain the friendship of my the group members. So, in classes like that, again, not necessarily explicitly, but implicitly, the honor code it's never very far from the discussion. We look at, we start the course with a Shirley Jackson's short story, The Lottery. And I used to worry about giving that away, but seems like everyone has read it now. So, but the story, that is a superb tool with which to look at honor, where these people just fall in line and commit that murder simply to adhere to tradition.
Right.
And again, that is a perfect opportunity to say to students, or even to suggest indirectly, that all of us, to some extent, find ourselves in situations where we participate in things really without thinking, without necessarily raising an objection. And again, that takes you to the center of our honor code, where you often have to resolve the conflict between how you feel
Right.
personally and what you're called upon to do. This is all sounding very abstract. I apologize, but again, I think the honor code should be a kind of an electrical current that just runs through the school continuously, and that when opportunities come up, the school should address them. If there's an incident within the school, and we're not obligated to be confidential about it.
Right.
If there were, say, an ugly incident cheering at a game, if there's something good that happened,
Right.
Someone demonstrated kind of a selfless act of charity or kindness, that should get mentioned, in front of the whole school. Just this, it's as exemplary. or is in need of correction. You know, just again, like, you know, we're living we're in a bubble here, of course, but we live in the real world.
Right.
And I think, you know, every chance we get, we should be able to relate what's going on, both here and of course, you know, if events come up in the news, you know, and someone demonstrates either, you know, the ignominy, you know, of treachery, of false accusation. Again, this is something we can comment on both in class and school-wide. And if someone does something, you know, laudable,
Right.
that should, you know, again, in the U.S., abroad, anywhere, we should talk about that, and use it as a means to further, you know,
Yeah.
the role that the honor code plays in our school. It's vitally important. I mean, without the honor code, the school really doesn't have a direction. You know, it would otherwise be simply a place where you went to get the skill set
Right.
to proceed to the next level. This school has to encourage students to want to be honorable citizens. I mean, that can mean a lot of different things, and that's obviously, there is no one model. You know, I'm certainly not suggesting or implying that, you know, that there's one way to be honorable. There are many ways to be honorable. And there are many people who disagree about what honor even means.
Right.
And again, you know, the only way to inculcate an appreciation for the complexity of trying to determine what the right thing to do is, the only way to encourage that is to keep it front and center.
Can you describe your sense of the word honor and maybe how that relates to the Pingree motto, excellence in honor?
Well, good question. For me, I think of honor as being true to a set of principles, a set of convictions that you believe in, and being true to them regardless of the circumstances that come up. If one of those principles is, I mean, just to give an example, kindness to others, you know, it's trying to live to that principle in a world where tempers flare, where you feel frustrated, where, you know, it doesn't always go your way.
Right.
You know, and where you find it, you know, challenging to, to walk the walk, as well as talk the talk. So, again, for me, honor is, of course, it's deeply rooted in the principles of self-respect and respect for others. If there's an absolute foundation for me, that's it. You know, participating in and contributing to a community. You know, I want to be honorable because I'm a part of this school. I want to be honorable because I am the son of a father and a mother who taught me to be honorable. I want to be honorable because I'm a husband and a father. Like, all these different roles, you know, sort of call upon me, you know, to be honorable, to do the best I can. Again, to live by the principles that I believe in, to stand up for them, and to be a good person, to be a good citizen, to be a good individual. And of course, it's very easy but it's easy enough to formulate the principles.
Right.
You know, I mean, I grew up with a religion, had 10 commandments, you know, pretty explicitly clear about what you could and couldn't do. Easy enough to understand. Honor thy father and thy mother. And I believe in that, based on what what they do for us. They've earned that, but at the same time, practicing, putting that principle in play every day, not so easy. For me, living honorably is aspiring to these principles, knowing that you'll fall short. I was not always honorable to my parents, especially from the ages of 17 to 23. Fell a little short there, but at the same time, I've never lost sight of the importance of those principles, trying to live up to them, and encouraging others to do the same. I guess, as a teacher, one of my responsibilities is not only to encourage students to live honorably, but
Right.
also to try to model the behavior that I think would show them an example.
Right.
So for just as an example, when a guest comes to speak at our school, and this is a prosaic example, but I mean, it's like when a guest comes to speak at the school and I ask a question at the mic, I always say, thank you for coming. It's a small gesture,
Right.
but it's a way to demonstrate, in a very small way, that people who come to speak to our community are owed that respect. Even if I disagree with what they're talking about, they've earned, our gratitude, for coming here and doing that for us. So, from gestures and moments as sort of common and everyday as that, is all the way up to speeches I give to the assembly, to the way I conduct my classes, the way I conduct myself around the school in the hallways, and on my bicycle. Act honorably and keep my MPH average up above 22. But I remember one time I was doing it's about a 5-mile run. It's out to Somerville Road and back. It's an out and back. It's just under 5 miles. But I was, there's a certain time I like to hit
Right.
when I get back. Keep on the clock. And in this particular route, I like to come back in under 35 minutes. If I'm 34:22, that's great. If I'm 35:12, I'm not happy. And I went out one day, I pushed it, I came back over 35. And I was just really angry about that. And before I really had a time to, to sort of think it out, get my bearings, I picked up one of the big garbage cans out by the side of the building and just, flung it on the ground. Clanged loudly, and some kids saw it, and I hate to think what they thought of me to see, that kind of outburst of anger. That was not honorable, and there some students saw an adult, a teacher, a coach, an advisor, someone in charge, acting most dishonorably. And I wore that one for a while. I really thought I have to do better than that. So again, I think part of my role here and in life. I mean, I'm raising kids now, so
Right.
I have to act honorably with them. So when I'm in the car and someone cuts me off on the highway, I have to restrain myself verbally. Not the easiest thing, but again, it's like. Acting honorably often, it's easy when nothing is awry, but when things go haywire, or you don't hit a certain benchmark, or You come home and the package from Amazon you've been waiting for is not there, and you get angry about that, and then the dog cuts you off when you're coming in the house, and
Yeah.
it boils over. You just have to take a breath and remember that you're always sort of visibly on display, and that a big part of your responsibility is to demonstrate in difficult circumstances or just frustrating circumstances what it's like to act honorably. Trying.
Yeah.
Trying.
Can you describe some of the goals that you have teaching really any of your classes? Although I guess maybe the bigger ones are your ethical dilemma and your freedom classes.
My goal, the main goal I have in any class is to sort of to engage the students and to appeal to their genuine intellectual curiosity. The book, the film, the poem, the article, the essay, really that's incidental. I mean, I love some books, and I live to teach certain titles, but if I have 12 or 14 students in the room, I want them all to be engaged and to feel not only comfortable expressing their personal opinions and ideas, but like almost compelled to include those in the discussion. I really want my students involved in making the class worthwhile. I guess investing in the class is a common phrase, but I just I became a teacher because, and I think a lot of teachers feel this way because I came alive intellectually under the guidance and mentorship of the teachers I had. My interest in history and philosophy and religion and literature and the arts and painting and sculpture, music, politics, all these things. I have these interests because I had teachers growing up who appealed to my intellectual curiosity and who made me fall in love with subjects like the Italian Renaissance, German Expressionism, the novels of Scott Fitzgerald, and I know that it's very important, vital, instrumental that teachers play that role with students. That it's not just some kind of stale exercise. It's not just some kind of motions we go through. Yeah, I'm an English teacher. I assign a book, you read a book, we figure out what it means, you write a paper, we move on. I tell you that to me that is the sand trap to avoid. It's just I would do anything in my power to make my classroom an interesting and dynamic place. And part of that is a willingness to relate personal experiences I've had that I think are relevant to the material, and also can make it sort of come to life in a personal way. It might not otherwise happen. I love when students initiate conversation in and out of class and in conference, because to me that shows that a student not only has the independence of mind, of thought, to come up with her own idea, but then also has the kind of courage and conviction to want to express it and share it with other people. When that starts happening, do you know what I mean? All the other particular details of the class are almost incidental. I mean, if I'm sitting there and we're reading Huck Finn, or we're reading 1984 in the Freedom class, and the students are. My credo is this: like, the worst thing that can happen in my class is if any one of the students like goes through an entire period without thinking and engaging the material. I'll do anything I can to prevent that from happening. You know, I just, a class that is static and inert, I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do the job. If that were the job, I wouldn't do it. I'd do something else. For me, and I don't sit around with fear of failure complex. I don't think like, oh my God, my next class, what do I do? And, you know, my classes, as far as I can tell, and my students, you know, relate to me, my classes are interesting. But that's as much a tribute, that's more a tribute to them than it is to me. All I do is sort of sit. I'm like an orchestra conductor. I just wave the baton a little bit. The kids are. It's their input that makes the class special. But again, it's important that I kind of set the tone and kind of oversee the unfolding of the class to make sure that it's something that's memorable, something that students will come away from feeling like A, that they played a part in making it happen, and B, that they learned something valuable from the experience. Without that, I'd probably be off practicing law somewhere, doing tax returns, or you know, wills. Who knows? But you know, having said that, when that happens, you walk into a class, you start talking about The Great Gatsby, and it turns into this kind of multifaceted, magical exchange of ideas and opinions, of disagreements, of jokes, fun, the whole spectrum of reaction to that great book, then this job is magical. This profession is magical. Teaching is an avocation, it's not a vocation. People teach because they love teaching. And people here, I mean, I don't know the profession. I don't know what teachers in Milwaukee public schools are like. I really don't, you know. But I know the teachers here, and I know teachers in schools like Pingree. And those of us who, you know, committed our lives to this profession, we do it because we love it, not because we ran out of other options or we thought it would be a way to pass the time. Most teachers I know are passionate about being teachers. That's why we get so upset when kids don't read the assignments. Hard not to take it personally. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm just about out of questions. And also, I kind of want to beat the CP rush.
Yes.
Mr. King, do you have any short last stories that you'd like to tell?
Let's see. Pingree stories or?
Surprise me. It can be on anything under the sun.
Anything under the sun. Let's see. G-rated.
Preferably, but you could probably push it up to PG-13
Okay.
if you really need to.
Goodness. Let me think for a second. Story. All right, I'll tell you a story.
All right.
When I was a kid, my father took the family. I have three brothers. My dad took all of us in to see the auto show, the New York Coliseum. This must have been in the early 70s. And we went in there, and one of the attractions was a sports celebrity was going to make an appearance. And so we were all excited about that. We were all sports fans, and we went in there, and the celebrity showed up, and there was a giant scrum of people, fans, and in the melee, my kid brother, who was about 9, got pushed to the outer edge of the circle, didn't get to see this man, and he was whisked away, and my kid brother burst into tears. And my father, being the man he was, ran all the way across the atrium of the Coliseum and flagged down the celebrity and said, "Oh my God, I hate to do this. I know you're busy and your time is valuable, but I got a son back across the way there who came in to see you and was is crying because he didn't get to meet you. And I apologize, but is there something you can do to help me out here?" And the celebrity said, "Where is he?" And the celebrity, sports celebrity, walked all the way back across the central atrium of the Coliseum, back to where my kid brother was sitting, and he sat down with him and he spent almost half an hour with my kid brother. Had him on his knee, who's your favorite player, what position do you play, stay in school, all the good stuff.
Right.
And it was magical. I love that my father did that for my brother. That's how much he cared about him. And it was to this day, my kid brother claims that that's the best day of his youth, was when that happened to him. Mm-hmm. And so that's a story I remember fondly. The interesting part of the story is who do you think the celebrity was? I know it's an impossible guess. You know who it was?
Who?
O.J. Simpson.
Oh my God. Wow.
True story.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's all I can really say.
That's me too.
Wow.
I'm not making that up. That happened.
Oh my God.
As they say, I was there. But
all right. Well,
anyway, it was great. Dude, this was a lot of fun.
Thank you for speaking with me.
Now, will this be broadcast or what's
yes.
the? Okay.
It'll be on YouTube, and I'll just send you over a link when it's ready.
Okay, great.
All right, cool.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Tom Keating, English teacher, middle school B teacher, assistant coach.
Yes.
Calliope advisor, among so many other things. Mr. Keating, thank you so much.
My pleasure.